keep pounding a rhythm to the brain. La-da-da-da-dee. La-da-da-da-da. Drums keep pounding a rhythm to the brain. La-da-da-da-dee. La-da-da-da-da.
What's going on, guys? We are back for another Mitch on the Mic episode. Now, I know we've talked to Chris before in the past, and if you look far down my Facebook timeline, I'm sure you'll probably come back across that one. And that was a while ago before we had a bit more equipment. Since then, we've had a big upgrade on, say, audio, videography, that sort of side of things, which is great. Obviously, we have the intro video and that sort of side of things now. So a fair few big upgrades since then. Unfortunately, my laptop didn't work tonight, so we're using my partner's laptop. So she saved the day with the Apple laptop. So thank God for that. So first off, welcome again, Christopher Sturdy.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, Brett.
No, not a problem at all. Now, as I said, we have had Chris on before. We're going to give you a sort of like a quick rundown for the people that sort of haven't sort of, I guess, seen that previous, episode, you could call it. Talk a bit about yourself, your entry into it just quickly and basically, where you started and where you're at now.
Cheers. For those who don't know me, I'm Christopher Sturdy from Brisbane, Australia. Race with Pratt locally. I've been racing for 17 odd years, something like that now. All around Australia, a few trips overseas, and yeah, multi-time Australian national champion.
Yep, perfect. Multi-time Queensland champion. You've tripled it up if I remember it correctly. Yep. That's
triple, double,
full drive. Yeah, something like that. Yep, perfect. So a couple of things we're going to run through tonight. We're going to do like a fair bit of focus, obviously, on the upcoming Worlds over in Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to chat a fair bit also about the Chargers RC Carnival, which only recently happened, obviously, at Chargers RC. Chargers obviously being one of my sponsored, for this live stream and that sort of side of things, which helps out as well as the fact that we both race the event. And we're also going to talk about next weekend, which next weekend is a Scotty Ernst event in Australia, which we are privileged to have Scotty come down under and, use his talents in our local area. That's a sort of rundown for what we're going to chat about tonight. And, we'll probably go a little bit through setup and stuff for your car on the weekend, or both of your cars on the weekend, and a bit of banter and all that sort of stuff when it comes to two-wheel drive. The weekend, Chargers RC. Once again, massive weekend, so massive ups to the committee for running that event. Big entries across literally every class, and they had, I can't even remember how many classes, but they had multiple classes of vintage. They had outlaw, which is, I think, from roughly pre-2000, so say mid.
Yeah, I think it was like 20. I think it was 20. Anything pre-2015 and rear-mount only.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so rear mount only two-wheel drives, and four-wheel drives. We saw some old school 4Bs that are running out around. That sort of mix in between that sort of vintage / new cars, I guess. And then, so we'll just get that mouse working. Tweet. So really good weekend. Massive ups to the committee for pushing through on that. The amount of work that would have gone into that to prepare not just one track, but prepare two tracks, as well as a vintage track being like a old school, proper dusty, loamy sort of conditions.
Yeah.
Massive ups to the committee. It's a massive amount of work. All right, your weekend. So you actually ran the vintage. So you actually have first-hand knowledge of the vintage track itself. So hit me with the vintage stuff. Like, what did you run? How'd you go? How did you feel? All the works.
I ran a black edition version of a RC10 GX89 world spec, but a custom black edition with Reedy power. It was good. It kind of just felt like how driving was back when I started. Because for those that see, I race on high grip at the moment, but I did start 17 years ago on loose loamy dirt rear mount. It kind of just second nature, go into tight corners, slam on the brakes, and then just mash the throttle, kick up some roost, just power slide the car through the dirt, and just find grip that way. So yeah, it wasn't like too different or too difficult or anything like that. It's a really fun little track. The club have done a really good job on designing something that's in a really small space that's got a lot of character to it. Like there's some high speed corners with some bumps and some small jumps, and then some bank sort of sections, and they've done a really good job with it. It was quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. It has that old school vintage feel to it,
Mm.
that's for sure. Yeah, minimal jumps, nothing massive, nothing like
Yeah.
the I guess the new layout or the new
Yeah.
six surface track, nicer sort of things. And they obviously, I know probably a fair few people probably don't know, but they have just announced, well, a couple of weeks back, they are upgrading the
Yeah.
vintage track and getting a bigger area for that as well, which is going to
Yeah.
be awesome. So
Mm.
I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to that. And they said that'll be done, obviously, probably over the next few months, but before the next Chargers Carnival,
Yeah.
which will be probably around the same time next year, because the
Mm.
weather around this time of year is actually quite nice. It's not too bitterly cold. I was wearing shorts
No.
each day, which was beautiful. I love shorts in
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, once the sun comes out, it's yeah, you sort of get that chill in the morning if the wind kicks up, but then in the middle of the day, it's sort of like low 20s, and yeah, shorts and t-shirts.
mm. All right, so yeah, we ran quickly through your vintage style of things.
Yep.
Um, on the topic of the weather and the ISO side of things, you were running both two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive modified in the the new vehicles and that sort of side of
Yep.
things, or the standard vehicles. Um, I know that I was making a couple of changes as the day was going on. I know that you guys were doing fairly similar. What sort of
Yeah.
changes were you making as the temperature, say, warmed through the day and then slowly decreased in the afternoon?
The main thing was just changing the shock oils out. We kind of got it, I wouldn't say like wrong a little bit, but we just didn't quite nail the times. We did the same thing at the Queensland State Titles last year, but we actually spent a lot of time prepping for that. So we had everything already set up, but we weren't quite, we weren't as prepped for that. We didn't really have multiple stuff set up or anything like that because we've been chopping and changing setups the last few weeks. But yeah, we just, when the track cooled off, we dropped the shock oils and then sort of went back to our normal shock oil in the heat of the day. The four-wheel drive was probably, we had correct initially one way, but not the other, and then vice versa for the two-wheel drive. The two-wheel drive, we had to drop the oil, whereas the four-wheel drive, we had to raise the oil compared to what we already had for the peak
Right.
time. The four-wheel drive was really good in the morning and afternoon, but in the middle of the day, initially on Saturday, Saturday or Friday, it wasn't the best, and we corrected that for the next day, and vice versa for the two-wheel drive. That was the main thing. I can't remember. I know we changed a couple other little things on the cars, but nothing really major. The four-wheel drive, we made a couple changes that were definitely for the better, especially for the last run of the day. The car was much more settled. I think it was a caster change we made to the front. We just went up 1 degree on the caster just to settle it down a little bit. And then the two-wheel drive, I can't remember, we made a change at the end of the day, and the car didn't quite feel that great. Still drivable and manageable. Just sort of faded off as the day went on.
Yeah. The big changes that I made, and once again, I know that I'm not in the same league as yourself, but not too far off this weekend, thank God. Obviously, I went up in oils as the temperature came up. This is only for two-wheel drive for me. I only ran two-wheel drive mod. I went up in oils as the heat kicked in through the day, and I also went from a extra soft to ultra soft, I think, Jetco tire, it's a positron virtually, to the super soft, which is just one compound stiffer. Positron S3 would have probably worked very similar, if not the same, I'd say. It was just, you could tell that, I guess, the temperature in the track was a lot higher. I ran the ultra softs the day before, I think, during round 3 of qualifying, thinking, the track temperature had dropped off enough, and it just felt like jelly out there. So it just wasn't great. So it's good to sort of be able to match a setup. And once again, I wasn't doing big changes. I was running the mic for the majority of the day. but just match changes and tires to suit the track. And
Yeah.
the difference that that made was massive. And, you know,
Yeah.
it was rewarding for me for the reason that, you know, other than jumping from the mic to the racetrack, I could tell the difference from, say, Friday, Saturday qualifying. And then once Sunday came around, the car was just switched on. Like, it was immaculate.
The tyres was definitely a big thing. I know a lot of people were playing with tyres. We played around a bit as well, but I think it was definitely, from what I could see and what I felt, was all very much setup dependent. Like, the setup I had, it was actually faster to run the harder compound tyre, and the setup actually worked the tyre. So basically, almost just driving the car harder made the car better to drive on the tyres. That it worked. Whereas I think if we probably ran like our national setup or our setup from the start of the year, you know, we probably would have been able to had to switch to the softer tyres. Whereas when I put the softer tyres on, the car was just rolling around everywhere. The only time I ended up running the super softs was in the top 10 shootout, because that was first thing in the morning and I wanted them to switch on within half a lap.
Yeah.
Whereas in the racing, we just stuck with the medium softs, because that's, you know, if I kind of belted around for half a lap, the tires just came in and was fine for the rest of the run. But definitely, if the setup wasn't quite suited for the tire and vice versa, you had to kind of work the car very differently. The setup seemed to, the harder you drove it on the tires, like, just worked them harder and kept the heat in them.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And yeah, I guess we're sort of looking forward to, I guess, a similar sort of setup when we get over to the US in certain ways as well. We'll move on to that a little bit more in a bit. Obviously, you managed to take the win, TQ, in both classes, two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive mod. I put as much competition into it as possible, but I failed once again. I came second, runner-up. It's a common thread when I'm racing against you, unfortunately. One day that will change, I'm sure.
No, you did really well, man. It's good to see you back running after a bit of a hiatus for a while. And you definitely improved over the last 6 months from when you were kind of back racing at Chargers a little bit, and now actually putting a bit more time in. Really good to see. Yeah,
I actually said to Dom earlier today, I feel like I'm getting slowly back to my, I guess, peak, and my peak is above average, so at best. But yeah, no, it is good to be back racing a bit more often. Anthony Miller said, great weekend. It was a really good weekend. Feel free to chime in with any questions for Sturdy or even myself for whatever reason that you would like to ask me a question at any point. At any point, guys, as well, whether it's on topic, off topic, whatever, by all means. But yeah, so big weekend, great weekend, run over 3 days. I guess you could say for the stand or the modern cars were ran, say, Saturday and Sunday, whereas the vintage would run sort of Friday, Saturday. But yeah, technically over 3 days for the whole event, which was awesome. Really good fun. But yeah, Toya. Logan Toya, what's up, lads? See you Thursday. Yes, we will see you Thursday. Toya, are you running both Nitro Buggy and E-Buggy? Or are you doing the Nitro thing and running your Truggy and Nitro Buggy? That's what I want to know. E-Buggy is a glory. But yeah. Okay. I'm sure we'll probably end up coming back to that at some point. Chargers RC weekend, that sort of side of things. Nitro Buggy, E-Buggy, and Nitro Truggy. All right, so he's got all bases covered, trying to get a trophy in at least one of them. Great Q4 and two-wheel drive. Pratt was intense switching leads, finding your feet again. No, Matthew Lawrence, massive weekend as well for you, taking TQ in round one. Obviously, you were having, I think you had a couple of issues in your Q1, didn't you? You had a couple of stacks from what I remember, or is that Q4? I can't remember. I know you had technical transponder in one of them.
Yeah, I think that was. Yeah, I had issues in two of them. One of them, luckily, was able to still get the win in it, and then the next run, I think some transponder glitch or something. Where yet to sort that one out. And pulled out of that one. I can't remember too much from especially Friday. That was it was some long days and chopping and changing between vintage and modern on both days.
Yeah. Actually, how did you feel like with that changeover? I'm sure once you're used to it, it sort of wasn't that much of a change, but they was separated by a fair bit of time.
Yeah.
You probably had a practice beforehand on each car.
Yeah, I think I made sure I had one run, but I spent, while I was doing the vintage runs, they had the modern day track open for practice. So I was doing I'd go and do a vintage run, I'd come back into the pits, I'd go out with the tour drive and four drive each, and then kind of just kept doing that whole rotation through the day. So then by the time it got to the actual modern stuff, I was fine. But yeah, we were out there the other weekend as well, working on the cars. So I kind of feel it's semi easy just to switch on between the cars.
Yeah.
Out there, it was a little probably tricky switching, if I went to the four drive straight away after the vintage, but going from the vintage to the tour drive, it was fine.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, big weekend, that's for sure. Okay, World. So we've been pretty much, I guess, finalizing our plans for the Worlds. We sort of roughly know where we're gonna be, roughly know what we're gonna do, what races we can actually attend. Actually, recently, Coyote Hobbies put up a series, an 8-round series, if I remember correctly. And one of the dates is where we're there. So that makes it easy. We can actually have a proper race there, and hopefully a couple of big names turn up for that one as well. It'd be good to see, who else turns up for that. I'd be surprised if a couple of big names didn't turn up in a way. But yeah, so it'd be good to see at least who turns up and have a proper run there. Tires. Now we believe that the World's tires probably won't work the best for racing conditions, at least. Well, that's what I'm under the impression of, at least. Are you looking at just potentially just running some aquas or something for that night, or aqua smoothies, or whatever works for the best of the track, or would you try to persist with the
probably just I'll work that out when I get there. If the AKAs feel fine and the pace is fine, I'll just run them. But if they're definitely not suited for the club night, I'll just buy from the hobby shop what works, and source them up and just do the normal stuff that the club guys are doing. But that'll just kind of be play it by ear and just work it out when we're there on that particular day.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of days up at Coyote Hobbies, and we're going to have a break day. We might head down to SDRC for at least one day or one day, and then a couple more days at Coyote before making the trip to Phoenix. I think we're going to have at least a spare day at Phoenix now, just to sort of settle in before
basically
prep
2 days.
Yeah. So prep day for anyone that hasn't run an IFMAR event, before the actual event starts, before even tour drive even kicks off or practice, there's a full day beforehand that pretty much everyone has to turn up to say get your tires, or whether you purchase them or you have to purchase them at the event virtually. Glue them up. You spend half the day at least gluing your tour drive tires up. So
sorry guys.
Everyone's high as hell because the glue, and your eyes are stinging. You're like crap, and usually you have about 4 tires glued to each finger. So, for me at least, so by the end of the day, at least by halfway through the day, you've probably met a fair few of the pro drivers, or the pro drivers are probably getting Jason Rona or something to glue their tires up. So, so everyone's gluing up tires for the first day before even practice starts. Practice, you can use your own tires, if I remember correctly. In the end, it's no benefit if you're running a better tire at the track. If you're running aqua smoothies that are 2 seconds a lap quicker, you can look like a local hero, and then come race or practice time, qualifying time, it's completely useless. I think it's Monday, or it'd be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday will be tour drive, if I remember correctly. It'll be the same as Europe. Wednesday will be the break day once again. So tour drivers Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, break day of Wednesday. So final obviously on Tuesday, break day Wednesday. Once again, you do the exact same thing again. You glue tires for half the day for four-wheel drive. Probably end up gluing even more tires.
It's a gap day, but it's just a four-wheel drive prep day.
There really isn't, like, they consider it to be a spare day. There isn't much of a
Oh,
spare day.
so also a hangover recovery day for a few people too.
Yes, and looking at the team,
Yeah, there's going to be lots of that going on.
it will be a hangover recovery day. No, it'll be good. Then from Thursday through till Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4-wheel drive. So practice Thursday, usually qualifying roughly on Friday and then finals on Saturday. Something along those lines, from I remember correctly. I think it's usually about 4 runs per day or 3 runs per day. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Again, it's been a while.
I think something like that. Might also depend on the fact that it's indoors and they can run a bit later. So yeah, I don't really know till we see a schedule. From memory, I don't know when we see a schedule. It's probably hopefully coming up because we're 2 months out now. So I can't remember whether we got it before we went to the last couple of worlds or we got it pretty much when we got there. So but yeah, hopefully know something soon on roughly how many runs, especially practice. I think it's 5 qualifiers for each class, and then the mains, but I'm not too sure on practice. I can't really remember. I know there's 3 controlled practice runs, like 2 seeding, and then you've got like a final seeding for your heat, basically, before qualifying.
So it's got to be a good 5 per day, I'd say, at least.
Yeah.
I cannot remember for the life of me what we did in Europe, and probably for the best. So
I know the final day in China was 5 in the last day. So we had 2 qualifiers in the morning, and then the mains.
Yeah, that was a heavily weather affected as well. So
we had a bit of a delay on the last day.
Yeah. Anthony Miller has said, what sort of track surface will be at the Worlds? You can explain that one, Chris.
Hard packed indoor clay. Looking at it, it's got a bit of sort of like rock granite sort of speak in there, because apparently it's quite hard packed and you can kind of get a bit of sparks off the chassis. So it's probably a bit of rock in there as well. But it's quite high grip, especially compared to like the indoor clay tracks we've had here in Australia. Yeah, it'll feel sort of a bit more high grip. But yeah, it's just an indoor damp clay. They've got a misting system in there, so yeah, very different to what we're used to in Australia, so to speak. Besides a couple of tracks, but it should offer some good racing, I think, and it's fairly consistent. It'll just be as the track breaks in and the tires break in, really, for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, exactly. And Dominic Blackman is giving me crap and saying, Mitch, will your beard catch up to Chris's before the Worlds? Well, to let you know, Dom, I'm sleeping not too far from Chris, and I'm going to take a shave with me. I'm just going to shave his off. So it sure as shit will catch up before the Worlds.
It'll be getting a trim anyways before I go, because a mate's wedding the weekend before we leave. So we're getting all prim and proper before we head over.
Yeah, there we go. Jeez. No, there will be some quality videos coming out from the Worlds. I can guarantee that. So watch out for both Chris's and my Facebook page. I'm sure there'll be a good couple of laughs. But yeah, so Worlds, 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive covered. Hobby action in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you want to sort of follow the action directly from the Facebook page itself, it's Hobby Action. I think Hobby Action Phoenix, Arizona, or it might just be Hobby Action RC.
It's Hobby Action RC Raceway, I think.
Yeah, I'll quickly
something like that.
Hobby Action RC Raceway, yeah. So yeah, if you want to jump over there and have a squiz when we're over there, I'm sure we'll probably link it whilst we're over there as well.
Yeah.
I think it's Mod RC Media. I'll just double check that. Is covering the live streaming. Just give me 1 second and I will double check to make sure. Mod Live Media. So Mod Live Media is who is covering the actual live stream for the weekend. I don't know if Live RC pretty much has almost anything to do with it. They might be live streaming it as well.
I think they are, because I think Scotty said to me that he's working for Live RC for that weekend and doing the commentary for Live RC. We just won't hear him at the track.
Right, gotcha. Scotty has sort of given me a slight invitation to sort of jump in there every now and then. So I'm sure I'll make a mess
Right,
of
nice.
that and have some fun with it. So, and I'll have a bit more of a chat to him this weekend about that as well. And I'll double check everything and hopefully I can do a proper announcement for that. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, so it's going to be an awesome week of racing. And yeah, I think I know that I'm damn well looking forward to it and looking forward to the trip itself, obviously. But the
Yeah.
racing side of things is going to be epic. Gaza has come on and said 17 days with you two. I'm going to need a holiday when I get home. You're going to need more than a holiday. You're going to need a psychiatrist or something, some special treatment from some mental health helpness person. I don't know. Yeah, psychiatrist. What's wrong with that? But yeah, no, Gary, you're going to struggle. I'm going to be sneaking like all sorts of stuff into your food.
Like New Zealand trip all over again, but for
Yeah,
about 3 times as long.
yeah, exactly. Oh, geez. As long as I don't get pushed up against like 20 suitcases, we'll be straight.
It's all right. If you fall asleep in the car again, you can bet I'll get another photo.
Yeah, no, and that will happen. I'm gonna buy a face mask that has like painted on eyes, so that way I look like I'm always awake. Oh, geez. No, it's gonna be an awesome trip. Yeah, 17 days with the Sturdies, and then yeah, I break off and head off with my old man, and we do a bit of NASCAR traveling and that sort of side of things. So there'll be a fair bit of video and footage, photos, and all that sort of stuff. That from my side. And yeah, once again, to follow Sturdy's sort of side of things, jump onto his Facebook page and sort of follow that as well. Christopher Sturdy CS13. So if you want to head on over and check that out, make sure you do. I'm sure there'll be a lot more sensible posts than what there will be on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
put all the banter ones up on the Gaza page.
yeah. All right. Next weekend, so once again we slightly brushed on it just before. We got Scotty Owens coming to town, and we got the AOC. So sorry, not AOC. Asian Buggy Championship, ABC. AOC was a while ago. ABC Asian Buggy Champs coming up. So that's at Pine Hills Dirt Racing. Looking to be another big weekend. So Thursday practice I think starts. Qualifying, remember, starting on Friday. They're nice. They're not long days though. Thank God. They're 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So yeah. Was it a Supra or something? Was it? Some stealing car. I heard a car go past you.
Oh yeah, there's a couple in our street. There's a couple nice Japanese cars in our street.
Yeah. Yeah. So 4 big days again. Dom is loving me taking so many days off at the moment before I take a lot more days off. But yeah, so Pine Hills Dirt Racing. You're racing e-buggy.
Yep.
Just e-buggy. Yep. And running the team associated RC8 B3? B4. Okay. How much prep have you done for this event? And hopefully you say no, so I have a chance.
Prep was about a year ago when I raced the car. Yeah, it has not. Gaz has been working on it, prepping it, but yeah, it's just been covered in dust for the last 12 or so months. I can't even remember the last time I drove it. I think I drove it just after the car came out. But yeah, no, it should come up fine. Bit of fun, really. It's what we're doing it for. And track time, competition, e-buggy is going to be a pretty good hit out. Alex Benazic, Caleb Noble, Jackson Beal, Ben Sterling, all those guys. It should be pretty good. But yeah, just a bit of fun really. We should have tried to tee up a nitro truggy or a nitro buggy to borrow or something, because we found out the schedule and I think Thursday it's three runs. So yeah, we're going to be there from very early in the morning to late in the afternoon or night to miss the traffic. 3 runs, so yeah, we probably should have tried to tee up something, but go have some fun, bit of banter through the pits, plenty of time for that. So should be a nice fun weekend.
Yeah. So you haven't even done any practices recently. I know they
No.
had a practice. I think what was it? Friday gone. They had a practice run. But
Yeah.
I missed out on that too.
Yeah, no, the car was in pieces because we weren't planning on it. So didn't get the car anything ready until after the Chargers Carnival. But yeah, and I had some other things planned over the weekend too, so you didn't really get a chance to do anything with it, or even to go to Logan just to run it. But that's fine. It's like I've run the car enough before just to sort of switch onto it, and I kind of just drive it like I do my normal 10 scale, 4-wheel drive on low grip, so to speak. So just kind of throw the car around and all that. But it should be fine. A couple of runs to get used to it again and dust off the 8-scale cobwebs. But looking forward to it.
Yeah. Dom's just giving me more and more crap here. Landscape Labourer wanted to call Dom on. I should just call it out. Like you can see in the comments, anyways. Everyone should just blast his phone. No skill required. We'll slot right in there, Simon Johnson. Come on, Simon.
Or is it just no skill required to match the current skill of Pratt? Or what's the...
I'm in permanent training, all right?
You always will be.
But yeah. So I think that I potentially even heard that it might be just 5-minute practices or 5-minute qualifying. I can't remember exactly, which is going to make it tough. I can't remember exactly. I might be completely wrong there.
I was hoping for at least 7-minute practices. I haven't actually seen if it's only 5-minute practices. That's fine. I'll just throw the car around as hard as I can, find the limits in 5 minutes, and then go from there.
Yeah, I guess like 2-minute warm up, 5-minute practice. Yeah, I might be completely wrong. Hopefully, Mr. Beal or someone will jump on in and correct me there if I am wrong.
Who's got a nitro buggy I can borrow for a weekend with an engine?
Yeah. But no, so once again, it will be a good weekend, a big weekend. I'm sure we'll probably end up having like a good dinner and stuff with Scotty and a whole big crew. It'll probably go to that, which would be good. Once again, hopefully the Beals have got somewhere planned. Might have heard whispers of somewhere. I can't remember exactly. And yeah, so looking to be a really cool weekend. So yeah, with nitro buggy, electric buggy, nitro truggy, electric truggy, and I think they tried to have gas truck. Pretty sure 5-minute practice and qualifying is 5 minutes too, according to Jaden Emmons. So yeah, I think I am correct on that one. So yeah, we'll make it tough. Luckily, the interstaters do get an extra couple of hours of open practice at the end of the day, which doesn't include us.
Yeah, even I haven't driven for over a year at 8 scale.
Yeah, I may as well. My house officially identifies itself as being in New South Wales, so I think I count as outside of Southeast Queensland. But yeah, so no, it'll be good fun. Yeah, good banter weekend. Bragging rights on options. And yeah, A-mains are going to be tough. So obviously Edmund's coming up. Toya's coming over from New Zealand. So a lot of quick drivers coming up for this one and over from shores. And yeah, obviously the Eggletons as well. So it's good to see them coming up for this one. We are thankfully for New South Wales for the win. Lol. So yeah,
you guys are residents by now. Come on.
I'm pretty sure they have a second house in Queensland, don't they?
Yeah.
Like in Southeast Queensland. I think we should claim that as being that is their main house. I'm going to claim.
They race here more than in New South Wales, so
I'm going to claim that I live at Pete's house. Just part-time. Very part-time. But yeah, no, it's going to be a good fun weekend. But yeah, track there. We'll go through basic about the track. Oil track. Feel free to explain the rest. I guess it's an oil track.
Yeah. I know the dirt used to be a red clay dirt. pretty sure that it's the same dirt base, just oiled, and Zach Ryan does a really good job of maintaining the track and making sure it's really good. It's best. The best the facility and the track has been for many, many years, so it's really good. And all the work that he does and the rest of the committee and everything do on it, it's always a consistent track because of it. And he's constantly out. Even on some club nights, practice nights, he's out there and on the roller in between, making sure it's everything's good. But yeah, it's sort of if you get a bit of water on it, the tires just pick up heaps of wet oil and dirt. That's an absolute super fun to clean. Use sugar soap to get it off.
I think they have nutted that out a fair bit lately. I think Travis mentioned that the oiling process they've sort of really ironed out, and apparently it's a lot better now. So
that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, but it'll definitely change a little bit in condition wise. If the sun goes down and the temperature drops and bit of dew on the surface, the track slicks up a little bit, and I think we should hopefully have the new Jetco compound to run, one of the new clay compounds in cold weather, I think it is, to run. So it's it's an interesting surface, but it's always had some good racing on it. It's nice and consistent in that regards. It doesn't really blow out and dust up during the runs. It kind of just, especially for the guys in the Nitro main, it kind of stays consistent for the hour. So it's good in that regards.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty decent sized jumps, obviously being an 8-scale track as well. I can't. Well, they've done a couple of club meets somewhat recently, but they have had a track change since then. I don't think it's a massive track change. I think it's just a couple of sections, like once again.
Yeah, it's a little bit through the middle from what I can see. I haven't seen any complete photos. And then a little bit on the right-hand side. I think just the way the track flows is a bit different now. A couple extra jumps in the middle. I think there's a sort of a big double in the middle. I haven't seen too much of it or any footage or any complete photos of the track, just sort of bits and pieces that they put up on the page.
Yeah. No, exactly. But yeah, once again, looking like a good fun weekend. So expecting probably medium to high grip, I'd say, for an e-buggy.
Yeah, it's probably about medium. I mean, to what you and I are used to with Chargers, what we would call high grip, it's probably about medium grip. Like it's slick, so it's kind of a slick high grip. You've got to try to, the tires play a big part in it. You need a bit of heat in the tires, especially when it's cold. I wouldn't say it's like super high grip, but probably for 8 scale, it's probably fairly high grip without it being a like artificial, concrete sort of grip type track.
Yeah. And Jenna's just mentioned, went out there Friday. Zach and the crew have done a cracker job on the track. Loads of fun. Yeah, so it's all sounding good. Okay. We got actually a question a couple of days ago from Sunday, so yesterday, from Chris Lander. He wanted to ask. He said, "Hey Mitch, when you talk to Chris Sturdy this week, can you ask him about VRC and how much online RC car is used for practice tool? I get the feeling it's a bit of a secret tactic that he, Kyle McBride, and Bruno Kaler use without saying much about it, but could be completely wrong at the same time."
For me, I stopped using VRC, I think probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think like the year after I won the World's VRC, so I think that was like 2015 or something. I think so. It's good, especially if starting out, just to get the feel of your radio and just general driving and things like that. But what I found for me, anyways, when starting to progress further to somewhat the higher end side of racing, for me, anyways, I felt it was more of a hindrance. You kind of pick up some habits that don't necessarily transfer as well over to to the real racing. So I stopped using it, and just kind of like, I think if you're able to get out to the track at least once a week, or even once a fortnight, really, and just do your clubby every fortnight, and kind of just work on things and work on your driving, it kind of works a bit better than the VRC, so to speak. But yeah, I haven't touched it in years. I can't remember. I think I picked it up once at early COVID, I think for like 10 minutes, and then went, no, this just feels wrong. This just feels weird again. So I just haven't touched it. It was kind of like you had no depth perception. That was the biggest thing for me. So it was kind of that habit and getting back, sort of transferring between a screen to real life, made it much harder. So if I'd spend a couple of days during the week on VRC and then go out to the track on the weekend, I've kind of just got to reset my brain. Whereas if I'm just going week to week at the track, I'm not having to do that.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, you actually mentioned bad habits there. Would you say that's predominantly to do with off-road, or do you think that carries the same weight when it comes to on-road as well?
Well, I found that on-road kind of felt very different to the normal, like, real on-road. I struggled to get a feel with the on-road cars in the game. They just didn't quite. The cars didn't feel like they flowed as well as a real touring car did. So for me, definitely, while I was racing touring car, I didn't really want to touch the touring cars. They just felt really unnatural for me. The main cars I drove were the short course 4x4 and the e-buggy, and a little bit with the nitro buggy, but I wasn't really racing those cars at the time, so it wasn't really, so much as picking up many bad habits. But even then, the short course, yeah, kind of just it didn't really feel like normal 10 scale off road. So, there was still that big sort of a gap between real life and the virtual. It's as close as you can get. With the resources that they had for VRC to produce what they did. But yeah, I just kind of felt, for me, it was just a little bit bad habits with like throttle control, and just the way you'd sort of drive the car through the corners was just a little bit different to real life. So it was kind of harder to make just kind of that transition week to week between the computer to the track. Whereas, if I just went track to track to track, it was kind of easier for me to switch on each day at the track. Whereas now, like, I'm kind of at the point I can go from one day at the track, wait a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then, I'm back at the track, and it's just bang, your muscle memory's there. Whereas if I had spent that time on VRC, I'd have to then retrain my muscle memory. And same after all that time during COVID, as soon as we actually got back out to the track, I was pretty much back on it straight away, because just the muscle memory was still there, and I didn't kind of substitute that in the meantime with VRC.
Yeah. All right, we're going to try something here and see what happens. Okay, yeah, that worked pretty cool. Speaking of Kyle McBride, you mentioned it earlier. Has he entered for ABC? I just went through the entries, and there is no Kyle McBride on the entry list. To my knowledge, once again, there's nothing being officially released, but to my knowledge, he's somewhat retired, not completely retired, but somewhat retired. It'd be actually really good to have a chat with him, whether it be in person or on Mitch and the Mic, to see what his plans are. I think that's probably the main thing, like to see what he actually plans on doing, what he wants from the RC community from here on, or what he wants to do with the RC community. And I believe he's still working at OzRC up in Brisbane, to my knowledge at least. So obviously he still has a hand in the RC community. I'm sure he still has somewhat of a passion for the RC community. I doubt that that's just disappeared one day. And obviously he's an incredible talent from within Australia. There's no doubt that he is, and definitely was, one of the best drivers in the world. He's the only Australian to drive and win the Silver State, to my knowledge, over in the US. Multiple time world championship, final finisher. You know, he made the finals multiple times. Probably his most prolific one was, I think, in Thailand in 2012, if I can remember. Probably way off.
2008.
2008. So
I think he was 14 years old at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, it'd be interesting at least to get some sort of confirmation either way, just to find out, what his plans are and stuff. In the end, I guess it's a private matter. It's his own business, what he wants to do with himself. But being somewhat of, I guess, a public figure within RC, it would be nice for, I guess, the general public to sort of know what you're looking at doing. But yeah, nonetheless, that's, I guess, for him to choose whether he wants to talk or put a post up, or whether he just wants to, I guess, be silent with it and do what he wants to do, or what he is currently doing, which is currently keeping everyone in the dark. So, yeah. Maybe he's bringing his own car out. Maybe that's what he's doing. He's silently bringing his own car out, and he just wants to keep it under wraps, so he's just not racing anything.
Doing a JQ just in the background, just all of a sudden just pop up with a car.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so good to see him out running again in the near future. Yeah. No, it would be good to see him trackside again, that's for sure. Especially with Nationals coming up over in Perth. I know he did do a prep run. He did a practice over at Nationals. It had been probably a good 4 months ago now, but
started the year.
Preps. Yeah, he did laps over there, so you never know. He's won 12 or 13 in a row or something now, so it'd be an interesting way to not win another Nationals, or to not win to Nationals would be to just not turn up. And I guess if you're retired on the top. So, but yeah, I guess we'll wait and see, or wait and hear. But yeah. So nonetheless, see what comes. Other than that, man, I haven't got a massive amount else to talk about. If anyone else has any questions and stuff for either of us, feel free to jump
throw them up.
We'll start pretty much slowly but surely wrapping things up. But yeah, so looking forward to the Worlds, obviously. Had a good weekend at Chargers. Good weekend, good week, good couple of weeks coming up over in the US.
Yeah.
But yeah. Once again, we ran through your changes you made on Chargers for the weekend. Major changes we sort of ran through as well. Was there any sort of small changes you found actually made sort of significant difference that you didn't expect to make, or was there anything that sort of surprised you about the weekend, I guess, in a way?
Not so much really. The changes I made were we made a couple of small changes to the four drive at the end, like I said, and they worked. They did what I wanted, which was the caster change, and then I think we made a steering plate change. We went from +3s to +2s, and I just kind of settled the car down without really losing lap time or losing mid-corner steering. And then I think can't remember what else it was. We actually made a servo horn change on the four drive on Friday, just to try. Went from 18 mil to a 20 mil, just to kind of almost slow down the steering, without doing anything weird on the radio. I don't really like doing that with the radio too much on steering. So I did it with the servo horn instead. The car just sort of felt especially in the change of direction stuff, the car would just dart around ridiculously quick. So we just made servo horn change, which, I don't think we've, really played around with that for a number of years. We've kind of just left it at the 18 mil on the four drive and just kind of set and forget it. It's the first time we really played around with it. Besides that, I think we really changed too much else. I think I went back to running weight underneath the four drive, and that worked. We've been running without the weight under the battery for quite a number of weeks, and then went back to the weight in the car, and it was a bit better. But yeah, besides that, nothing too major or anything. We kind of just left the cars as they were and just made kind of minor tweaks as we needed, just to fine tune them a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm just trying to bring up a photo of Aiden Horn's car because I actually want to quickly touch on Aiden's car.
I
So
know you
it's,
bring it up. Just to answer Matt's question real quick, I
yeah,
went
go
up
for
on
it.
Caster on the B74. My B6.4, I'm currently running the plus 2.5 bulkhead with plus 2.5 on the caster blocks. So a total of 27.5 on the kick up. But yeah, I've been running that for quite a few weeks. Yeah, the two-wheel drive, I don't really have a edgy sort of feeling out of it. It's quite smooth on the steering, whereas the four-wheel drive was very much the opposite.
Man, I
And
love my
then
2B from the weekend. That was awesome.
Travis as well. Will the new T6.4 front end come into play for the Worlds? Yes, we've got the parts on their way. The team have been running them in the USA and liking them. From what we hear, the steering just feels a lot more natural and sort of linear feeling. It doesn't. I'm yet to kind of get some actual feedback, but I'll make sure I post some up. I'll hopefully have the parts on the next couple of days, and get them out at Chargers in a week or so.
If I'm correct, they've reverted the geometry back to the B6.3,
Just the
roughly.
steering rack. So
Right.
the kick up was one of the biggest changes with the B6.4, going from the chassis plate being at a 27.5 degree kick up to a 22.5 degree. So that in turn changed the steering bell crank angle to match because they sit parallel with the chassis. What they've done is reverted the bell cranks back to the B6.3. It's definitely advantageous when you're running, like we're back up to running, 27.5 caster, which is what we were kind of running on the old car. But because of that, the bump steer and the way the steering rack moves around doesn't quite feel the same. So they've got this as an option so that if you are running the more kick up, you can kind of get that more natural steering feeling that kind of sits more in line with the actual kick up that you're running, not so much the kick up of the chassis. So if you're running, much less kick up, what the car kind of came out with the B6.4, you'd probably still want to stay with the older front end parts. But I haven't, we've only really seen a lot of feedback from Dirt, and they've all been running on the more kick up and more caster. So I haven't really seen too many setups with the low kick up and low caster to see which option they're running. But that's probably something we'll play with just to get some clarification on what it actually does.
Yeah. Another question, Phoenix Eggleton. Peter Eggleton. Phoenix asks, what the main difference in driving styles between 10th and 8th scale for the ABC? So I find that 8th scale is a lot more aggressive, especially e-buggy. It's a lot more sort of you can hammer that trigger a lot more.
Yeah.
I personally find it gives you actually bad driving styles, in my opinion. That's why I stopped driving it for a while. But
yeah, you can definitely throw around the car. You can all the smoothness that you work on for charges and even for low grip tracks, you kind of just throw out the window with 8 scale because the cars are that heavy. You can kind of just rip the throttle out of the corners, just throw the car around, and the car isn't as agile as a 10 scale 4-wheel drive is. So it kind of it substitutes the smoothness for you without you actually having to drive smooth.
yeah.
The main thing I do differently is when I'm driving the 8 scale, I'll loosen off my trigger on my radio and my steering wheel so I can actually drive the car harder. Whereas the 10 scale stuff, I tighten it all down so I can be a bit more smoother.
Yep. Yeah. Adding on to your points as well, like I definitely I actually stopped racing 8 scale for quite a while just for the reason that the driving style of 8 scale is just so much heavier handed when it comes to as you mentioned, throwing the car around, throwing the car into corners. And one thing, and it's not a hit out at 8 scale drivers by any means. It's not calling them basic or newbies, but quite often you'll find a lot of 8 scale drivers try out 10 scale and really struggle. Like we had, once again, this is not, a hit or anything. Someone like Jackson Beale, who we all know is an incredible talent, come over to Chargers for the Queensland titles. It would have been probably 2 or 3 years ago now. and struggled pretty hard. And it might have actually been Sunny Coast. I can't remember exactly. It might have been both. But he struggled, and it is literally just because that the trigger discipline when it comes to especially a two-wheel drive buggy, but even a 10-scale four-wheel drive is incredibly high.
Yeah.
And that change from going from an 8-scale where you can come out of a corner a little bit sideways and just ping the throttle and just drive off and not have a worry in the world in comparison to a 10-scale. If you do the same thing, you'll still over-rotate the car.
Yeah.
You know, it is a different trigger discipline. So I think that's probably the main differences, I guess, in no uncertain terms between 8-scale and 10-scale, at least that I've seen and I've witnessed and sort of been involved in. But yeah, there definitely is a big difference between the two. Simon, let's see how this one turns up. Hi guys, we've recently had an influx of junior races at Chargers. Yes, you have. Do you guys have any advice for the parents? This could be how to approach the day or how they should have their buggies set up for an enjoyable day. Good questions. And I actually have some advice for the juniors as well, but I will start off with you, Chris, because I had to deal with them up in the stand.
Probably the biggest thing for me from, the parents, and this comes from my experience of, dad having to deal with me and vice versa. And, us trying to find our feet on how to treat the days and, what I kind of worked better at with him basically was just kind of, no matter the age of the junior, because, most of the time they're fairly new, is to let them find their own feet, let them make the mistakes, not to get angry at them because of it. A lot of the time, especially some of the juniors, they're probably more angry at the mistakes themselves and angry at themselves more so than you are with them for making the mistake. Like it is, like I get it can be frustrating. Me and my dad went through the same thing. I'd say to dad, look, don't beat me up because I made mistakes. I'm already doing that myself. The last thing I need is for someone else to, have a go at me for making the mistakes. I it's hard. I know the investment, that you'd be putting into your kids. And, dad did the same for me. You don't want to see it go to waste and the kid crash and break parts and things like that. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, they're probably kicking at themselves more so, especially, the kids fighting at the front. If they've been running first and then they drop back and lose the race because they made a mistake, they're probably more beat up themselves. It's probably the biggest tip is just kind of let them find their own feet. If things are getting out of hand, you can, sit them down afterwards and just have a discussion with them as to what went wrong and what can be done better from both side points, and, have a chat to them about the car, ask them if they're feeling comfortable in the car. And if they're not, try to find out roughly where sort of they're struggling with the car. And then if you're not sure on the setup on what to change, then especially for the guys at Chargers, myself, Pratt, there's plenty of other guys around as well that, have some setup knowledge that can go, okay, well, maybe make this change to try to help settle the car down a little bit for them and things like that. But in regards to setup, kind of just trying to find a nice middle ground. You don't want something that's too edgy, and then you also don't want to find have a setup that's really dulled in steering and things like that, because it's just going to teach them, that, the car's, just understeering everywhere. And, you kind of want them to feel the sort of best of both worlds. You want them to feel steering, you want them to feel understeer. You want them to feel and learn what wheel spin feels like and things like that, so they can adapt and learn. But just in moderation, basically, you want a nice middle ground with the setup and not something that's super dull, and go from there. And same with power, like, in terms of your speed and everything, it's just kind of when you're new, yeah, definitely, drop the power in that. There's no point, if parents are thinking about throwing their kids in modified at Chargers, best thing is get them used to 17.5 and work your way up to it. It's one of the biggest things. Probably the biggest advice is start small and then work your way up to that. But you don't want to keep them down on power for too long, and use practice days. Go out there, and that's when you can add a bit more power to it. You're not getting in the way of anyone, or you're not having that extra pressure from the racing. Use those days wisely to actually build on that and build up the speed and things like that.
Yeah, no, adding on to that as well, it's all good points there. Adding on to that, I think for kids, I know that there is kids, and one, Simon, obviously your own child, Robbie, he's super quick. I think the idea for juniors, it should be seen as learning and fun.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be
Yeah.
seen as I've got to win this race,
Yeah.
otherwise it's the end of the world. And I think a lot of the kids see it as that, and I think they see it as that through the parents. They don't see it as that because they want to see it as that. They see their parents race and their parents get frustrated, and they pass it on and go, all right, I can do the same thing.
Yeah. It's all about development. Like you use that class to learn things. It's the class where you can learn the racing and learn to race around others, and regardless of the finishing position. That's kind of what the class is there for. To learn all that without having that added pressure of competition. And that's probably the biggest thing. Is the last thing you kind of want is, as a parent, is adding more competition to that. You kind of, you want to take that away basically from the kid, because the less pressure the kid can feel, the better they're going to drive basically, especially starting out. Kids take time to build up, to learn how to handle pressure and things like that. And I think Peter asked me a question a couple of months ago, is like, how long for Eggsy to
Progress.
kind of get to that really sort of learning stage where you're taking in a lot more information more rapidly. And some of the parents really young, you've got a few years ahead. I don't think I started to really mature in my driving on and off the track for probably till I was 15, 16, 17. This is already 7 years in, so it takes time, and kids will be kids. And at the end of the day, there's no point trying to have them be like act and be what the top guys are doing in model stock. It's let them find their own way, but of course when things are getting out of hand, a bit too carried on and things like that, and there's yelling and all that, it's kind of when you got to sit them down and have that discussion with them, as for fun, but you're not here to get annoyed and get angry and things like that.
Yeah, and I'll be perfectly honest. I was on race control, so once again, I was on the mic for the whole weekend, and there's one race that I struggle to race call on the whole weekend, and unfortunately, it is the juniors, and it's mainly because of the words that are actually flung around up on the driver's stand.
Yeah.
Out of all the races up there, it is the worst race, and it's unfortunate to say, in my honest opinion, because some of the stuff that was said, I definitely don't think should be getting said by kids, and to be honest, even by adults. And I think that should be, if anything, it shouldn't even be like you had a crap race there, son or daughter. Do better next time. It should be, I hope you had fun. That sort of side of things, because to be perfectly honest, the words, and I had to have a quick chat with all the kids after the first race one of the first qualifiers, because it wasn't acceptable what was actually going on up on the stand. Which I think that's a rarity as well, to be perfectly honest. I don't think it's like that every week. But I think that's when trophies come into play.
Yeah, it adds that. Yeah, and I was the same as a kid. I got a bit more heated than that when I was a kid, and it was at a major event and things like that. And it does take time to grow out of and mature up to that. But that's where the parents need to help with that, and that's when you've got to talk to them and go, you've got to try to steer them in that direction to help them grow quicker, and mature quicker in the racing side of things.
It's a good question, actually. It's actually a topic that
Yeah.
I've been meaning to bring up for a while. Juniors are a necessity in our hobby. They're
Yeah.
100% a necessity. They're our future in the like no uncertain terms.
Yeah.
We're seeing drivers like obviously Phoenix progress through from junior into some of the one of the best stock drivers we have in Australia, and that's what we need. We need more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the same time, like obviously Phoenix was an incredibly talented junior driver, and everyone could see that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, junior side of things needs to be seen as somewhere to learn, somewhere to
Yeah.
enjoy the race day rather than to compete just for a trophy. And to be perfectly honest, I would happily have no trophies for juniors. I'll personally put that out there. I'd happily see, all the juniors get a participation award rather than a first, second, third, and none of the other kids get anything. That's just my point of view, and that's once again, it's nothing against any club that does do that, but
yeah, it's just finding a way to take the pressure off the kids and the parents too, basically to try to put the emphasis back on that it's a development class, especially in club level. That's kind of we have the big juniors at the state titles, and that's a little bit different because it is at a state title event.
I can understand that.
But yeah, definitely for club stuff, definitely. It's got to put the emphasis more back on it's a learning.
Yeah, each to their own though. Once again, each club can do their own thing, and I know that it's different problems per club. Like I know that at some clubs the kids are the best, out there, and then you have certain adults that are throwing the kids' temper tantrums and stuff. And you're like, all right, well, what the hell's going on here? But yeah, it is sort of a case by case situation. I would say, and that sort of side of things. All right, Matthew Lawrence, I'm going to let you. Do this one whilst I disappear for about 2 minutes.
No, it's all good. Matt, we've been running BallDiff for a couple months now. It is setup dependent. The setup we're running in the car suits the BallDiff quite well. Saying that, the gear diff still feels fine in the car. We just found it was a nice middle ground, and kind of wanted to get back used to that BallDiff feeling before we head over to the Worlds. But yeah, lately I've been running the BallDiff in the two-wheel drive. From a maintenance standpoint, it definitely wears out quicker than a gear diff. Definitely requires a little bit more fine-tuning and a bit more replacing it. We replaced it a couple of times during the weekend. Gear diff is definitely a bit more maintenance friendly, as long as you don't wear it out and the oil's 3 months old. Dominic. But yeah, we've been running the BallDiff for a while, and the car's been feeling good and balanced and just kind of consistent from new tires all the way through to 8-10 runs old. Archie, good to see you, mate. Haven't spoken for quite a while, so it's good to have you in the chat.
I'm back. What did I miss?
He's back. Not too much just Matt's question about the BallDiff and
so
I've been running it for a little bit. It's a little bit more maintenance. Make sure that it's not completely chewed up.
So I tested the BallDiff mainly early in the weekend. I personally didn't like it. But at that point, I didn't have a good setup in the car either, and I was probably running the wrong tires. So
it's definitely setup dependent. We found with the BallDiff, like it works with the setup we've currently got, but it didn't so much work with the setup we used to run, and vice versa. Right. So it all works in one. A lot of people sort of seem to forget, the setup all works together. Everything's got to, mesh in harmony.
Yeah. Hey Chris, how's it going? And Chris Hutchable, that is. But have you tested your current setup with a gear diff, and how did that go?
I think we did initially try it, and it was fine, but definitely, we've noticed as the tires wear down, the gear diff gets harder and harder to drive. Whereas with the BallDiff was a lot more friendly across from new tires all the way through to old. You didn't really lose a feeling. Whereas the gear diff definitely, Nationals last year we ran a 20,000 weight with 2 planetary gears in it, and then as the tires wore down, you kind of had to revert back to a 4-gear setup and then change the oil. And, it was a different diff from new tires to old tires. Whereas with a ball diff, we've kind of just found, we can just run the ball diff from new tires to old tires and, you still get decent forward grip out of the car, but it does depend on the rest of the setup too.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely an interesting change. Like I said, I didn't like it, but I also didn't test it towards the end of the meeting. So it'd be
general rule of thumb was the ball diff, you get more understeer with it. Whereas the gear diff is a bit more, you get a bit more rotation out of it. You've generally got to be a little bit more smoother on the throttle out of corners. Not to say you don't have to be with a ball diff, but you find especially on used tires, you've got a bit more forward grip as you get on the throttle, whereas a gear diff, as the tires wear down, you kind of just lose all of that sort of stability and the car lights up.
No. Well, that's, I guess, more interesting side of things when it comes to sort of, I guess, basic, well, not even basic setups. It's sort of a fairly big change, I guess, in the car. I was going to say something I've completely forgotten now, which is brilliant.
No surprise there.
Yeah, typical. No, if I can't think of it, no more questions and stuff, but we'll pretty much start to wrap this thing up anyway. As we mentioned, follow either, or follow both Christopher Sturdy, CS13, on Facebook for updates whilst we're over there. I'm sure you'll be posting updates whilst we're there, photos, information about, at racing times, when we're going to be up US time. We'll try and do some conversions and all that sort of stuff. I haven't used a converter app to bring it back to Australian time. I think the times are reasonable for, like, when we're racing in the afternoon, it'll be like sort of semi-early morning over here. I think it'll be like 10 a.m. for 7 p.m. over there, if I can remember it correctly.
Yeah, I think it's like 7 a.m. here is like 2 p.m. over there or something like that, I think. Something like that. So yeah, definitely like first thing in the morning, if you jump on and watch the stream, it'll be, mid-afternoon for us. But yeah, it's not terrible.
All right, so I've got it up here that it's currently 3 a.m. over in Phoenix, actually. So I think, it's more so the daytime sort of side of things.
Yeah.
When Australia wakes up, it'd probably be mid-afternoon over there.
Yeah.
So let's say, but yeah, so I'll keep an eye on that. We'll sort of work that out whilst we're over there and keep tabs on the times and, what best time to, I guess, watch both of us race, and say if I jump on the race calling side of things with Scotty Ernst, I'm sure I'll mention that.
I'm sure as well, Andrew Selvaggi will probably have updates on the Team Associated Australia page.
Yep.
As a big portion of the Teams Australia, and Andrew's going to be there as a team manager basis for the AE Australia team and AE as well with Brent. So I'm sure he'll have a lot of updates on there on the Australian page in regards with Australian times that you guys can all chime in and watch things and things like that. I'm sure he'll do some live streams and that during the week.
Yeah. No, exactly. So there'll be plenty of places to watch from. I'm sure RCRA, once again, will probably have updates or just general updates. RCRA 10 scale, I think it is. RCRA electric 10 scale, I can't remember. Electric off-road, something like that. I'm sure they'll probably put the occasional update and probably the odd silly photo of my pit area being
probably
catastrophe.
Clive will just be there taking photos of you all day, because I'm sure they'll all be absolute bangers to put on Facebook.
Yeah, and I will be editing them to make them. I've been meaning to put like a little sticker up here where my little Mitch and the Mike stickers can be seen on the shelf.
I saw your Travis Condon edits the other day on the Chargers page. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, no, there is some quality in there. I gotta admit, I surprised myself with how good I can do that and how useless I am at pretty much everything else in life. So,
if you spent that same amount of time cleaning your cars and maintaining them, you might do better.
Yeah, probably not. No.
So you just get Gats to do your cars for the world.
Yeah, exactly. That is easy. It's nice and easy. Get Gary from Gaza Motorsport to build your cars and go quick. What more can you ask for? So, yeah. Alrighty, mate. We'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for jumping on, mate. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Obviously, talking for an hour and a half ish. But yeah, shout out your sponsors, man. Like, obviously, your sponsors have helped you out to this far and going to help you get over to the Worlds and that sort of side of things.
Yeah, so massive thanks to Team Associated, Reedy, Jetco, One Up Racing, J-Spec, Stickers, Plague Bearings, Speedy RC, Berserk, RDRP, Subway Corinda for those local in Brisbane, Gaza Motorsport, as well as the Chargers guys. They've been a massive help this year for me to get to the Worlds, as well as Hybrid Landscapes. But yeah, and thanks to anyone that's always, supported me over the years as well. Had many over the years, and yeah, without all their support, I can't and haven't have been able to do what I do.
Yeah, exactly, mate. No, thank you very much for coming on again, Chris. And I'm sure if we don't talk beforehand on if it's on the mic, we'll talk when we get over there.
Yeah, sure. We'll do some do like I know what the equivalent in the USA of Countdown is. Maybe we'll do a Walmart edition of Countdown. Do a live stream of you shopping through Walmart.
Trying to find my secret special sauce again, some secret Thai sauce.
Could put on your best American accent for the video.
Yeah, I'll bring out an AK-47 with me or something like that. Oh god! All right, let's end this before I get in trouble. I'm gonna get banned from getting over there.
Good thing you're not on our plane. All right, see you guys.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Thank you very much, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, Chris.